she's doing that, I want to let everyone know, thank you so much for having us on today. We are representing the congressionally directed medical research programs, an entity within the DoD that offers biomedical research funding opportunities to help us support our mission for the warfighter, service members, veterans, as well as the American public. So there's also a public purpose to this. The slides that we will be presenting are quite dense, but the purpose of that is so that you do have reference material after this meeting in case you want to refer to any of the information that we are presenting today. There is an enormous amount of information also on our website. There are several programs under the umbrella for the congressionally directed medical research programs, which I will refer to as CDMRP from here on out. So I recommend that you take the time to navigate any of the programs that you think best align to your research interest. So I'm Akua Roach. Again, thank you for that introduction. I will go ahead to the first slide. Thank you so much, Sarah. So for today's talk, again, this is a tag team effort. So I have my colleagues here with me. So we'll be discussing the overview of the CDMRP to include our funding process, what that looks like, give you some ideas of our opportunities that we have for researchers, and also just a quick note about other DoD funding opportunities that may be of interest to this group. Based on the types of researchers that are, and entities that are usually involved in this summit, we are going to speak a little bit more specifically about the peer-reviewed medical research programs infectious disease portfolio. I think there are a lot of entities here that are interested in this topic, as well as some of the unique attributes of the cancer programs, as well as the neuroscience programs as well. Next slide. So as I was kind of noted before, the congressionally directed medical research programs, if you go down and then up, we are an entity within the U.S. Army Medical Research and Development Command. As its name notes here, we are interested in advancing medical research capabilities, medical capabilities using R&D, research and development, to help us meet the needs of the Army and the warfighter and veterans as well. And that command falls within the Army's Futures Command, and that command is really looking to modernize the Army to make sure that we can strategically and decisively win any future conflict. The Army Futures Command also is one command within the Department of Army, as you can imagine, and that is all within the Department of Defense. I will note here that although the CDMRP is within the Department of Defense, our programs, again, as I noted earlier, have a public purpose. The outcomes from our programs inform and impact all patients of any diseases, conditions in the public domain, veterans, as well as the service member as well. So I think that is a common misconception that DoD research has to only be directed to military service members. They do have a military relevance, but we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to some of the cancer and neuroscience program. Next slide, please. So one thing that I will note, and you probably noticed this in the heading, this is a congressionally directed medical research program, and yet we fall within the Department of Defense. So what that means is that Congress sets aside additional funds to be added to the Department of Defense for the execution of these programs. So these are what are called congressionally special interest programs. So these are special interests by Congress that we execute here at the CDMRP. And as you can see here on this slide, we also within the DoD have what we call core programs, and those are very specific to military needs. But as you can see from this slide, our programs also feed into the mission of directly of the military of these core programs. We're looking at research and development of acquisition and acquisition of medical advances, and medical research. But as you see from that last arrow there, they're really also looking at healthcare solutions for all peoples. I'll go to the, I'll keep it here. At the very bottom, you see that the outcomes include medical devices, pharmacologics, vaccines, drugs, biologics, many different types. So it's, and as well as knowledge products, which can include software, best practices, guidelines, things like that. So I want you to think a little bit differently about, than maybe your preconceived notions of what DoD research is, because we do also include, have biomedical research within our portfolios. Next slide. So the vision and mission of the CDMRP is to transform healthcare through innovative and impactful research. We are really looking at impact here. We want to make sure that the projects that we fund are going to have a real and meaningful impact to the patients or the intended recipients or beneficiaries of the research. And we try to do that by responsibly managing collaborative research that discovers, develops, and delivers healthcare solutions for service members, veterans, and the American public. There again is that American public, that public intent there. Next slide. So the organization first started in 1992. So we've been around for a while. And it started with the grassroots efforts by breast cancer advocates that really just marched up to the Hill and heightened and increased political awareness of breast cancer. And in that year, Congress appropriated $2,010 million from the fiscal year 1993 budget, DoD budget, for a new breast cancer research program, what is now known as the Breast Cancer Research Program, the BCRP. And we at the command, the Medical Research and Development Command, as I noted before, was tasked to manage it. So that's what we do here at CDMRP. So because this was a slightly different endeavor, the Army sought the advice of the National Academy of Medicine, and they recommended to us that we have this two-tier review process, which includes a peer and programmatic review. So many of you may be familiar with other funding organizations that have a peer review and then they have a pay line. We also have an additional review process that includes programmatic review, and I'll touch a little bit about that on the future slide. And then we also have a new research model that really incorporates the consumer. So we identify consumers as anybody that has the condition, the injury, the disease of the program, as well as their caretakers and care providers. So we incorporate those individuals into the program policy, the investment strategy, and the research focus. Again, harping on the need for impact, making sure that the consumer is involved throughout the process, so we know that whatever projects are funded using these dollars are going to have a real and meaningful impact to the community. But since 1996, additional research programs and topics have been added by Congress and administered by the CDMRP, and we are now up to over 30 research programs that we manage here across many different topic areas, but it was started with the breast cancer advocates. Next slide. This slide, again, very busy, but it just gives you an idea as to I remember I said we have 30 plus programs. These are all the research programs that we have that are managed under the CDMRP. The total is a $1.5 billion appropriation. That's just for fiscal year 2021. So that's the 2021 budget that you're seeing here. You'll see on each slide here also that we listed here the appropriation for this fiscal year 21. In millions of dollars. So for example, we have an autism research program that has a $15 million appropriation. We have a melanoma research program that has $30 million. We have a orthopedics program that has $30 million as well. So you can see that there are so many very different topics. So I'm guessing that there are going to be topics on this list that are going to be relevant to your research. Next slide. But I want to also make sure to note some of the hallmarks of the CDMRP, because it's going to be important should you decide to apply for one of our funding opportunities. As I noted before, Congress adds these targeted research dollars to the DoD budget. So you want to make sure that your research has a military relevance as well as a public purpose. We do fund high impact and innovative research. Again, making sure that the potential impact of the outcomes of your research, be it early stage animal research or late stage clinical trials, the impact of the eventual short or long-term impact is understood, realized, and communicated through any funding opportunity. We also avoid duplication with other funding agencies and really try to target the unfunded, unmet gaps, and work very closely with those other agencies to make sure that we are not duplicating effort. As I noted before, we followed that recommended model for application review. We have that peer and that programmatic review. Again, I'll get to that later. Consumers, again, participate throughout the process and really are the true north and foundation of the programs. Again, if we're funding research for research sake, we're not meeting the true intent of these dollars. We're really hoping to make an impact to care and to the lives of consumers and patients everywhere. We also annually adapt each program's vision and investment strategies, which allows us to rapidly respond to changing needs. Of course, COVID is an excellent example of that. Once the pandemic hit, we were able to rapidly respond to that and solicited for some COVID-specific research. But in general, you'll note in my prior slide that I put up the fiscal year 21 dollar amounts, because those dollar amounts may change from year to year, because again, it's every year Congress adds these research funds to the DoD budget. So we won't know until the law is passed what the funding is. So it's really important that you, if you're interested in applying, that you visit the website to see, and the funding opportunities to see what the individual programs are interested in and what their vision and investment strategies are, because they may change. We have funding flexibilities. Funds are obligated upfront. We have very limited out-year budget commitments because, again, our funds come in annually, so we don't have a guarantee of the future year funds, and we also have no continuation funding also for that purpose, and also because we have to have a fair and open process. So every year, everything is solicited to allow new researchers to come into our pipeline. We also have no pay line. We have that. We consider funding recommendations on portfolio composition, adherence to the intent of the award mechanism, relative impact, as well as technical merit, and several other factors that will be indicated in the program announcement. We have transparency and accountability to our stakeholders. All of the research we fund is available on our website. You can search that. You can search within the website to see what we have funded by program, by PI, by institution, however you'd like to do that. And we always incorporate some statistics as to what has been funded versus what was received. We try to keep our management costs low to maximize the dollars that go towards research. And I think we have one of the lowest of all of the federal agencies. Next slide. This slide here just highlights the unique partnerships that we have throughout the healthcare system. Of course, we fund impactful biomedical research, but we really also fund research that's conducted in institutions around the world. I often get the question, do you fund research in Canada? Do you fund research, in overseas, in Europe, and in Asia, wherever? And the answer is yes. As long as your organization is registered in sam.gov, then you can apply to any of our funding. I'm going to go ahead and skip this slide because I'll touch on some of these later. But again, this is a good reference point for those of you who are on today's summit. We do have major partners and collaborators. We have strategic input and planning from the Department of Health and Human Services. So you're all familiar with NIH, BARDA, CDC, FDA. But we also have the Veterans Affairs on our programmatic and other panels across CDMRP. Again, we coordinate funding, and we also work with non-federal partners as well. Our research dollars go to support both extramural and intramural researchers. And again, we can't highlight enough the inclusion of consumers and their input as well throughout the process. We are very much interested in that long-term impact, that long-term outcome. So we always put a emphasis on the transition. So after the research is completed that you receive funding from us to do, what is the next phase? Have you started thinking about that? Are you going to move towards commercial? Are you going to move to the next phase of the development? Are you going to move towards human trials? Are you going to move towards federal applicability? So all these types of things are important to us throughout the process and throughout the funding. And then also implementation and dissemination. We want the research that the outcomes of our funded research to impact the field. So we always put an important emphasis on implementation and dissemination. Next slide, please. I'm going to go through a little bit quicker. So here is our program cycle. You'll note that there's a lot here, but what I want to highlight here is the funding opportunities are released at different times of the cycle, depending on the program. So you want to make sure to review the CDMRP website and other resources to see when those funding opportunities are available. And then we do have that peer and programmatic process. Peer review, I think, is universal, as far as you probably are all familiar with the peer review process, where subject matter experts in the field of study that the application is submitted to review that application for the scientific and technical merits. In addition to peer review, there's also programmatic review, where the program and their subject matter experts in a panel format review those applications of high scientific merit and to move them forward for consideration for funding. Again, I'll touch a little bit about that, but that might be a little bit new. And once we have that determination, then we make the recommendation to our commanding general, and the awards are recommended for funding, and then we do the award negotiations as usual, and then we will also in-house manage your, help you manage your award. Next slide, please. So each year, you may have remembered that I said we annually adapt the vision and mission of the program. The vision and the investment strategy of each program depending on several factors. That includes the congressional language. Again, Congress adds these funds every year. They can incorporate additional language as far as what they want us to do with those dollars. We would take input and guidance from senior leaders and stakeholders. We take a look at the current research landscape. Again, we don't want to duplicate effort, but we also need to know what is the emerging technological advances that might impact the field as well as other many different attributes. Research capabilities, clinical gaps, and unmet needs are all discussed, as well as emerging technologies, impact, how can these programs have an impact to the community and the society, as well as portfolio composition. Next slide. We have research awards throughout the developmental stage for a project, as well as many for depending on the career stage. So we have some that are some research award mechanisms that look at initial concepts all the way through team science awards, clinical trials, early ideas. And then we also have some that are directed towards pre-doctorals, postdoctorals, new investigators, established investigators of the like. So really, and they may differ. So you really have to, they may differ by program. So you really have to keep an eye on the program information in order to make sure that the solicitation is appropriate for the types of research that you are doing in your companies or your lab space. Next slide. I touched on this already. So the peer review, again, is that criterion-based evaluation, looking at the absolute scientific merit of that application. We have no standing peer reviews. So if you submit one cycle and you resubmit again, it's to a new panel. Programmatic review is a comparison against, that is a comparison based system against proposals of the high scientific merit. There, we will make a determination of adherence to intent, programmatic relevance, and potential for impact. That is not where we do the scientific review. Again, that has already been done at peer review. At this point, we're looking at it's essentially the programmatic relevance of the application. Again, we have no pay line and no continuation funding. So every cycle we have to meet again and make sure that the applications are meeting the intent, again, of the award mechanism and of the program. Next slide. So again, this is for your reference after today's meeting, but you can access funding opportunities on our website through the CDMRP website, through grants.gov, through our eBRAP system and betasam.gov as well. We have many award mechanisms. I don't have the time today to go through everything. We also release what we call pre-announcements on the CDMRP website. And that really allows you to start preparing your application, again, for an individual programs before the announcement is released. So if we have some information and as to what we are anticipating releasing, you can get some information there to get a head start on putting together your funding opportunities, your grant proposals. Next slide. Again, additional information about the broad agency announcement. That's a little bit more all-encompassing, where you submit a white paper and then any agency within the DoD can, or within the Army, I think Navy has their own, can access that white paper to request that you submit a full application. Additional websites here as far as where we post the funding opportunities and the process is also noted on the slide. Next slide. I also put on here some information about the SBIR. That's the Small Business Innovative Research page. There's a lot of resources on that page. That office is separate from the CDMRP, but because of the community that is represented here today, I wanted to make sure to add that as well. I do see a question in the comment here about how does the CDMRP SBIR differ from the Air Force SBIR. I will note again that there is no CDMRP SBIR because those are two separate offices, but the Army SBIR, DoD SBIR does function separately. The Air Force SBIR, it's just a different program. So you just want to make sure that when you are submitting, you're submitting to the correct one and you're adhering to the solicitation and the requirements of that solicitation. So it really just takes some extra effort on your part to make sure that you are reading the solicitations as they need to be read. I'm sorry, to make sure that your applications are what's the word I'm looking for, compliant. Next slide. That's a good question. I'm going to go very quickly. I will note that I am not the program manager for this peer-reviewed medical research program, but I'm going to be presenting just quickly their infectious disease portfolio. This program has over 40 topics within their, oh, perfect. Thank you, Sarah. So noted on the slide here, you'll note that they just in fiscal year 2021, they have received a $370 million appropriation. That's $370 million that they have to put towards research within the year. But they have 42 topics. So what does that mean? I'll go to that in a future slide. But if you can go to the next slide, please. I'll note that again, this program in fiscal year 21 has released 6 program announcements. 6 funding opportunities, and they've received 1,200 plus applications, and 198 of them are currently under negotiation for award. So it's a very, very large program. You'll note that I noted before, some programs may receive 5 million, 10 million, 30 million elsewhere, and this is our largest program at 370 million. There's additional facts on this page as well. So for FY21, here are the 42 topics that are offered. Again, in addition to the 30 plus that's offered for CDMRP, this one program at 370 million just for FY21 has 42 topics. And you can see on the list, they vary. And this is, again, directed by Congress. Within the law, written into the law, are these 42 listed. So the program has to solicit against these topic areas. This, again, is for your reference. If you have anything on here that you think is of interest to you, I recommend that you visit their webpage, the peer-reviewed medical research programs webpage on the website. Next slide, please. And this, again, for your reference, this helps you better understand where the portfolios that they have and how they've been kind of clustered to better help you identify some areas that may be of interest to you and your colleagues. Next slide. For infectious disease, this is their entire award portfolio. You'll note here for infectious disease, it's in the top right area here. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Top right area, they have this is for FY16 to FY20, so within the last 5 years. They have funded 208 awards for a total of over $300 million, but it's only 21% of their portfolio. There's still many opportunities within the peer-reviewed medical research program outside of infectious disease, should you have a research interest in cardiovascular health, nutrition, and metabolism as well. Total is just for this peer-reviewed medical is 1.5 billion. I see the question in the chat, where would COVID fit? COVID would technically fit within their infectious disease portfolio. And at last year, for FY20, I believe, they released a COVID-specific funding opportunity announcement. So they did not submit to the general funding announcement, although they had the opportunity to do that if you had COVID-specific research. There was COVID-specific funding opportunities, funding opportunities specific for COVID research. So that information, that data it may be in this slide. I think it's under infectious disease. Next slide. I can't see all the questions, but I'm hoping to get to those in a little while, if I have a few minutes left. This is, I think this is my last slide. So there are 6 funding opportunities anticipated for all peer-reviewed medical research program portfolios in FY22. So if appropriated, these funding opportunities will be available for proposals. Again, you have to make sure to target one of the topics, and those will be defined by Congress in the law once it's signed into law. Right now, it's a bill. So this just gives you a quick glimpse of the types of funding opportunities. So the peer-reviewed medical research program for infectious disease and any of their other projects does have discovery awards. Those are early and innovative concepts for about 200,000. Investigator-initiated awards for more established ideas at 1.6 million max per award. The Focus Program Award, which is really a team science award that might include projects from different entities or different institutions. Those are 7.2 million. And then there's also some translational awards that are looking at technology therapeutic awards, also at 4 million. I'll note that for this program, I think they're the only one that has a clinical trial award that has no direct cost limit. Obviously, if you come in with a grant proposal, you have to justify the cost, and the cost of the clinical trial should match the work that should be done. So that will be negotiated if awarded. Okay, I'm going to, I have 0 minutes really, because next is Donna's portion of the discussion. Dr. Kimbark will be discussing the cancer programs. So what I'll do, I'll let Dr. Kimbark go ahead and start, and I'll try to answer some of the questions within the chats. So if you have any other additional questions for me, I will go ahead and drop in an answer into the chat. Thank you for your time, and I'll hand it right over to Dr. Kimbark.